G'day, Lewis.
Hello, Daniel. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very excited for our guest this week. But before we get into the big guest, just a quick reminder, Irrational Fear is selling out. Yes, we're dirty sellouts. If you want to book an hour-long funny comedy show about your industry, book us. We've got comedians and experts at hand to make your corporate event not boring, and we could help your employees laugh at whatever's the most rational fear for your business. It's fun, it's fast, it's cathartic. Would you say that, Lewis?
I mean, it's yes, I would. Partly because we need the money.
Yeah. And if you're wondering, it can also be Chatham House rules. We don't mind. Or Vanderpump rules. Any rules. No rules. We'll abide by your rules for any kind of money. Be in touch, dan@irrationalfear.com, or reach out to our friends at Creative Representation. Are you excited about today's guest, Lewis?
Oh, thrilled, Dan. This is really huge. It's very exciting. I can't wait to get into all the different things that we need to chat to this guest about.
All right. I'm recording my end of Irrational Fear on the land of the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. Let's start the show.
The following program contains rude words like Mark Latham, blockchain, and Twitter. Irrational Fear recommends listening by immature audiences. Comedians, experts, laughing at the world as it burns down around us. This is a Rational Fear.
Tonight, the Great Barrier Reef suffers the worst coral decline on record, or if you ask the Minister for Environment, the best coral decline on record. And the first term of the Albanese government was the second most secretive in the last 30 years. In response, the Prime Minister said, well, that's because Rabbitohs also need to Toto. And President Trump says JD Vance is the most likely heir to his political movement, which is sweet relief to any couchers waiting for their green card. It's the 8th of August 2025, and with more confidence than a Tasmanian Premier, this is a Rational Fear.
This is a Rational Fear.
Don't forget to unplug your set.
Hello, welcome to Irrational Fear. I'm your host, former Demons coach Jan Illich, and we've got a big guest today. Former Mayor of Fairfield, former Treasurer of Australia, current Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and I'm going to say it, presumptive President of COP31. I'm going to say it. Welcome to Irrational Fear, Chris Bowen.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Lewis. Good to see you guys.
Oh, that's good. Is that your commercial radio voice?
Yes. Good morning. Yes,
You're here with Hobber Illich and the Bowman.
SIBO is the general nickname.
SIBO.
That's not bad.
The late great TV show, The Project, called me SIBO, and Bill Shorten cottoned onto it, and that became my nickname.
Oh, right. R.I.P.
Albo and
R.I.P.
SIBO.
The Project.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, let me ask you this. Why did you agree to doing this comedy podcast here in your office?
I'm a naturally funny guy. No, I'm very much not. No, because...
Why don't you consider yourself a funny guy? Why don't you...
Oh, life's a serious business.
My God.
I've got a serious job to do. No. Well, look, I think you've got to communicate. I don't do every request I get, obviously, but I think I've got to communicate what the government's doing, what our objectives are to a diverse audience. Sometimes that's talking to Conservatives. Sometimes it's talking to you guys who are not conservative. You've got a great listenership, so why wouldn't I come on?
Terrific. Well, I understand you're a bit of a no olives, no anchovies kind of guy, but today might get a bit
You've
salty.
checked my dietary. Anchovies are the work of the devil and should be on no dishes.
Clip it, put it on the internet. That's the clip that's going viral.
All right, well, it's been great talking to you guys. See you later then.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to ask you more about COP, renewable energy transition, and circling the square when it comes to emissions, but a little bit of that later on. But first, I couldn't help but notice that your title is Minister for Climate Change. And then I was like, aha, that's why the safeguard mechanism turned out the way it did.
For climate change.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
I see.
That was a joke. I was implying that you were for climate change.
Right,
that
I see what you're doing there. Well, that's just the way titles work. So Chris Orman has complained that climate change is before energy, and that means I'm prioritising climate change over energy. So he's not happy either. So
right.
There you go. You can't please everyone.
When was the last time Chris Yeoman was happy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 1978, I think.
Chris Yeoman, doesn't he work for a pro-coal lobby group these days? Isn't he?
Well, he frequents
shipping
Sky
coal?
after 7 p.m. these days. That's
Right.
On that, though, when you took over the job, I mean, you took over from Angus Taylor. What was it like having to fill such small shoes?
Well done, fantastic. Great. Good. That's right. No,
It's such a low bar to jump over.
9 years of denial, delay and dysfunction. So, but that did mean, in all seriousness, we'd wasted pretty much a decade. So not a second to waste after that. Had to get cracking real fast.
And you seem to be someone who does get cracking. Like, you strike me as someone who knows their portfolio back to front, who's done the work, and for the most part is very invested in change for the better. It's a kind of a great...
For the most part.
Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to the bits we
still
disagree
in
on. Excellent. That's why we're here.
It's a great ministry, right?
We're not here to agree.
And a rewarding portfolio.
It is the most important job I've ever done, and I reckon the most important job I'll ever do. Like, to be Minister for Climate Change and Energy of our country, which is traditionally a fossil fuel economy, the greatest challenge of our time for the planet, the biggest economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, what other job would you ask for?
Weren't you treasurer for 3 months? That's pretty good.
Yeah, golden era. But no, this is...
Did you regret not having to, be able to do what Peter Costello did and just gave out like baby bonuses?
Well,
He
he was treasurer at a good time. Politics is about luck and fortune and time and chance, and as well as judgment and.
Did you cop being treasurer right at the financial crisis? Was that when?
No, it was after the financial crisis.
It was during the Labor leader crisis.
That's right.
That's right.
That's true.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. And we won't talk much about my time as treasurer, but I became treasurer like at 6 o'clock at night or something, and the Treasury Secretary came and see me at 7 and said, "I'm just here to tell you there's a multi-billion-dollar write-down in the budget in the last 6 weeks." I thought, I wonder if it's too late to back out of this job. So.
You kind of got that as well with this portfolio, didn't you? Because you'll know the details much more than I do, but you got a bit stitched up in terms of something that Angus Taylor was sitting on that he didn't reveal until after you took over.
Yeah. He had there's a thing called the default market offer, which sets basically the benchmark price for electricity prices, and it's been going up. And it went up under him, but he decided it's all covered by law. But he issued a regulation which said, well, we'll just sit on this one until after the election. So he was due to come out a couple of weeks before the 2022 election. He changed the law, so it came out a couple of weeks after the 2022 election, which was an extraordinarily convenient decision for him.
Surprise!
And by then I'd been sworn in as minister. So thanks very much. Well done, fantastic, Angus.
Well,
good job.
It's kind of one of these jobs where it's not the kind of job you want to have if you want to be popular.
No,
right?
exactly.
Right? Like, you've kind of got everyone bashing you. You've got people like us bashing you for not doing enough.
Yep.
You've got people like the opposition and News Corp
doing far too much.
for doing anything.
Absolutely.
If you fart, it makes it into the paper.
Well, yes, I'm big on Sky After Dark. Yes, but no, 50% of the people will wake up and say I'm doing too much, and 50% will say I'm not doing enough.
How do you navigate that?
And the number of people who think I'm doing exactly the right amount is infinitesimal. But that's the job. That's the job. That's okay. In all seriousness, though, like I talk about the silent majority, like I think the election result was a result of the silent majority. They're not on Facebook, denying climate change. They're not, writing letters to the editor, nor are they thinking about the things that I and to a degree you think about every day, all day, but they just want to get on with it. And so when I'm walking through an airport, the number of people who just lean in quietly and say, "Great job, keep going," is very big. Is very big. So, and again, I think that was reflected in the election result. So, in all seriousness, you get plenty of free advice in this job, but I think the vast bulk of people get it. They get that climate change is real. They get we've got to deal with it. They get that renewable energy is good. You can see that in how they're voting as well with their feet. I mean, we're putting at the moment 1,000 batteries a day in houses every day.
Yeah,
that's huge. And again, government policy has encouraged that. But government policy means nothing unless households want to do it. So they're taking it up in big numbers.
We'll talk about the cheaper home batteries in just a second. But have you heard of this thing called Facebook? It's where people who watch Sky News put their big feelings.
Yes. I am aware of its work, yes.
I'm friends with a few men of a certain age on Facebook who I rarely see in real life anymore. And they've all strangely got strange opinions on you.
I'm big on Facebook too.
There's some of the craziest personal attacks. I'm not going to show you the personal attacks, but I did invite one who I am still close with to send a message to you.
Is it repeatable? Because lots of my Facebook inbox is not polite for a family podcast.
Right, here we go. This is from my friend. This is from my family friend, Mike.
Absolutely everyone knows renewables can't be relied upon for baseload power. We need clean coal or gas, and yet you can't support this. Is it because you're arrogant or just bereft of brains?
Yep, that checks
brains.
out. That checks out.
Sounds about right.
That felt like one of the more...
Yes, there were some words there that, when he when he said you can't do it, I thought, did he just... Because that would be a common feedback on Facebook messages.
How are you such a celebrity in this, let's face it, a niche portfolio?
Well, I don't think it is niche because it is so important to the economy and the planet. And yes, there's a social media ecosystem which is full of climate denial. Your friend there maybe wasn't engaging in direct climate denial, but he was engaging in its all-too-hardism, which is the latest form of softer climate denial, but still denying the need to act. With all due respect to your friend, there's no such thing as clean coal. And
look, we know this. It's all right.
Well,
everyone who's listening to this knows this.
We can't turn it off tomorrow. Your friend might not realise I'm not doing that. We can't turn it off tomorrow because I do know that we still need it for some time to come. Gas does have a role to play in the system. That's where, we might have a difference of view, but your friend doesn't acknowledge that I say that. Again, it's a complicated policy area, and I fully, I got used to the fact on about day 3 of the job, and I've done big controversial jobs before, not only Treasury and Immigration Minister in particular is controversial. That's 3 years of my life I'm not getting back. So, you can't please everyone all the time. You just got to stick at it. And yes, you get the occasional criticism, like your Facebook friend who says you're arrogant. Well, I'm determined. I'm not. I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's determination to keep going for what is so essential for the country and the planet.
Now, we've got another one. This is not from Facebook, but
Okay.
I was at an event recently, a clean energy event, and this guy got up and he said some terrible things about you. I approached him afterwards.
Okay, yes.
This is not all about bashing Chris Bowen.
Right.
But I think...
it's been minutes since I was back. So fantastic.
You grew up in Western Sydney, mate. We know what real bashing's all about.
Right.
All right, mate. All right.
That's right.
This is a good, like a pretty decent question. He really toned it down when I asked him for a video. Here we go.
Mr. Bowen, when will you come up to Tea Gardens Hawk's Nest and talk to the local people openly about the offshore wind project?
You said he'd be lynched.
What?
You said he'd be lynched if he went.
Well, if he showed some ticker and cane, maybe he'd get some respect.
Now, this is a guy who stood up at a very public
Not a big
event
fan.
and said that he would hang you
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
went, but now he's actually asking you to go up.
Again, he's anti-offshore wind, obviously, and, he's entitled to his view. I have been up there and met with anti-offshore wind people. Again, no agreement. I do spend a lot of time in regional Australia with people for and against renewable energy, and, it's not true to say everyone in Australia is in regional Australia is against renewable energy. But on that point, on Hawk's Nest Tees Gardens, again, silent majority, a swing to the Labor Party at the recent election in those polling booths that are Port Stephens, Nelson's Bay. So, again, and I didn't necessarily see that coming. I knew it wasn't the big negative that some in the media said it was, but I didn't necessarily was going to put money on a swing to the Labor candidate and a swing to us in almost every offshore wind seat. In fact, I think every offshore wind seat, including Forest in Western Australia, which we almost won against the odds. So, again, silent majority says get on with it.
Wow, so this is like a clear mandate to actually
I think so.
push ahead
Keep going.
with
And the
transition.
instruction from the Australian people was keep going.
Yeah. Look, let's talk about some other great wins you've had this year. Cheaper home battery stuff is going off.
Absolutely.
A real hit, 341 megawatt hours just this month been added. That is crazy. That's like the size of a giant battery.
Bigger than the Hornsdale battery,
Right.
which was the biggest in the world when it was put in. And we thought, great, it's been done in 100 days. In 33 days, we've done much more than that through households.
Yeah.
1,000 a day, a weekday are being put in at the moment. That's more in the last month than in the first 6 months of the year.
Have you started your victory lap yet, or at least a social
No.
media post that went, fantastic, Chris, well done?
We don't do that in the Bowen office, let's be very clear. Look, I am very pleased. And again, I think it's a tribute. Again, Australian families just want to get on with it. So, and this was a risky policy. I won't breach cabinet confidences, but
you could, because that would be great for us.
That'd be great for your ratings.
Yeah.
But, I was put through the paces by my colleagues, quite rightly, because it was a big call. So I had to go to lots of meetings and explain why I wanted to do this and what protections I put in place and why it wouldn't be pink bats again and everything. So I had to go through all that, quite rightly. And it's all, we've installed today 23,765 batteries since the policy started on July 1. I get a morning update.
You need like a ticker on your desk.
I get a morning. My staff now sent me a signal message bright and early in the morning, let me know what the daily figure is. And every so often, not every day, but every so often I forward it to the Prime Minister so he knows how it's going. Right. And it's going spectacularly well. And again, smoothly.
It's like really well subscribed. Do you think you'll run out of the $2.3 billion?
Well, it's not
budget?
a capped program, so there's a bit of a, some people think once we hit 2.3
There's
billion,
still time.
it's a
Please, if you want to help us buy a battery, log on to the Irrational Fear Patreon. Chip in. We're going to save up to buy Lewis and I a battery.
Well, it's 30% off, so you should check it out, mate. Why haven't you put a battery in yet? What are you doing?
Just put a water tank in.
Why do you hate the climate? Seriously.
That's great.
Oh, God.
I mean, why are you a climate criminal? What are you doing?
This is like Sky News during the day. This is
why are you using coal-fired power at night when you could be having a battery to power your home?
Look, can I just say, we are in Chris Bowen's office in the CBD of Sydney. It's been stressed to me by your staff that this is a quote-unquote woke building that doesn't have air conditioning.
Yes,
and I am sweating here. Very sweaty boy.
We are in the most environmentally friendly building in Australia. That's right. We don't have air conditioning. Yes.
Have you got any data on emissions saved because of this battery?
Not yet, but look, it's part of our plan to get to 82% renewable. So, and electricity is currently our biggest emitting sector. It won't be for all that much longer because we're reducing emissions quite rapidly.
Will it be more or less than the 90 million tonnes of fossil fuels released from the Northwest Shelf each year?
It'll be a lot because, electricity is our biggest emitting sector.
Less is the answer.
Electricity is Australia's biggest. We can get into our domestic versus our international obligations. I'm sure we will and look forward to it. But, yes, we're 1% of emissions around the world. That 1% is important. Just like there are only 5 countries in the world with more than 2% emissions. Every country that has 1% adds up to a lot. So we've got to do that.
But is it frustrating that, you're doing all this great work in your sector to reduce emissions and then you have other ministers in other sections are just undoing that great work?
No, see, I don't see it that way. Now let's get into this.
Yeah, please, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Because it feels from the outside, it feels like there's a bit of rope and you've got one end and you're running and someone has grabbed the other end and they're running in the complete opposite direction.
That rope's tied to a gigantic tractor.
I guess I get why you would say that,
that rope's tied to our life.
But let's get into it because that's not how I see it. Because this gets to the argument that, Australia should stop exporting fossil fuels, right? Now, the way I see it, there's 2 types of country in the world. There's fossil fuel importers and fossil fuel exporters. No country is not one of the two. 90% of the world's population is a fossil fuel importer. So the idea that you could
We are both. Woo!
Well, a little bit, but we're mainly a fossil fuel exporter.
Buying our own back.
We're a net fossil... Well, I'm talking net terms. We're a net fossil fuel exporter. Of course we are. We import oil, but we export coal and gas, so we're a net exporter. Now, the idea that the relatively small number of countries that are net exporters, it's all on them, I don't buy. It's all on all of us, importers, exporters, everyone. And the idea that the exporters could just stop and the 90% of the world's population that lives in a net importer is going to somehow not need that energy anymore doesn't check out for me, doesn't stack up. That's why I take the approach. We work with other countries. I could talk about Korea, I could talk about Germany, I could talk about Japan. They're all different, but we're working with them all to reduce their fossil fuel use and to increase their renewable use. I got asked in Parliament the other week, how do you transition away from fossil fuels? The answer is you build renewable energy. That's what you do. And you do it domestically. That's what we're doing. We just touched on that. And you do it internationally. You help other countries do it. We're doing that as well. It's not as simple as turn off the tap, guys, and everything's okay. It is as complex as we're all got to do this together or it's not going to work.
But turning off the tap is not releasing a gas field for 40 years.
But he didn't release a gas. You're talking about Murray Watt. He didn't approve a gas field. He approved a processing facility. I know you might say I'm picking hairs, but facts are important. Sure. It's not he hasn't approved any new gas fields. He's approved a processing facility based on the very strict legal criteria that was before him at the time.
Does it ever feel like you're the Minister for Sisyphus?
Not a criticism that's been made on Facebook messages. No.
Is that right?
Believe me, I've heard them all, and I hadn't heard that one.
Okay.
So.
Oh, excellent, wonderful.
I think it's because it's too much of a tongue twister. It's so hard to type Minister for Sisyphus. It's just gets in your caught in your mouth.
Yeah.
So I guess the other, this is not so much your direct area, but the other big thing about these gas fields, the Northwest Shelf, is how little Australia gets out of it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So what my thoughts on that are, again, it's a legitimate debate. Do gas companies pay enough tax in Australia? I would say resources companies, you've got to have this debate factually. Resources companies paid $74 billion in the last financial year to government, state and federal. That's not nothing.
It's nothing for them.
Well, $74 billion, I've got to tell you, as the cheaper home batteries policy is $2.3 billion, for example. So $74 billion is quite a lot. Now, can we do more? Yes, and we have. And again, this is part of the political debate in Australia. we were involved in a big debate about the PRRT, which Jim Chalmers, to his credit, took the lead on and said they're not paying enough tax. He increased the gas take by more than $2 billion, and life moves on very quickly. Now, do most Australians know he increased the gas tax take by more than $2 billion? No. You might argue $2.3 billion, or it's a bit more than that actually, is not enough. You can argue that, but let's give credit that he's done it. And that's not all he's done. He's also cracked down on multinational tax avoidance more generally, which also covers resources companies. So,
we at Rational Fear, we have stopped our Irish IP double sandwich. We've stopped it.
Well, we've been worried about you.
We're keeping the tax in Australia. The ATO.
Not only do you not have a cheaper home battery, you're also a tax dodger. I've heard this about you. Yes.
Your fear is rational.
I want to move on to COP. I was in Paris for COP31. It was awesome, eye-opening, very inspirational. The very prospect of the Australia and Pacific region hosting COP is very exciting. We've already booked our venue for Adelaide, which is great, assuming that we're going to get it.
Is that the Adelaide Oval? Or
Adelaide Oval, yes. I'm going to Turkey next week. Did you want me to put the hard word on Erdogan to drop the bid?
If you could call in and see your friend, President Erdogan, that'd be great.
What needs to happen to secure it?
So it's a complicated situation.
What's the actual process there?
Well, that's a good question because there is no process.
Does Penny Wong call up and say, I'm going to bust your kneecaps?
That's generally not how Penny does business. No. So it's a great question. What's the process? The problem is there is no process. So we have overwhelming support for the bid. So I see some people saying, Australia's got to go out and get more votes and work harder. And I get where people are coming from, but it's not how it works.
Isn't it like FIFA? Can't you turn up with a few gold watches and
No, again, not how it works. So the reason we're bidding for next year for 2026 is because it's our group's turn. It goes turnsies between the UN groups. We're in the Western Europe group. Where else would we be? We're in the Western Europe group. You're getting an idea about how complicated this is.
How does that work?
Well, we're the UN
based
Western
on
groups.
Eurovision.
Yeah.
So
it should be more like FIFA. We should be in Asia. That way we definitely get the job.
Yeah, arguably we should be, but we're not. It's actually, in all seriousness, called the WEOG group, the Western Europe and Others group. So that's Western Europe, United States, Canada, New Zealand, that's us. We've got the numbers in that group. Right. So we've got overwhelming support. And normally that's how it would work. But there's no rules around how that's resolved. So it's not like on this day there's a ballot. And it's meant to work on consensus, i.e., more than one country bids, but then, it becomes clear who the group wants and it just sort of gets resolved.
So it's a few Western democracies up against an authoritarian regime.
Well, we respect Turkey's bid. I have to make that very clear. I've been very respectful of their right to bid. I've met with my Turkish counterparts, many, many occasions to try and sort this out. I've been to Ankara to try and sort this out, because we want to see a win-win where everyone can say, well, that we're happy with that result, because the alternative is a very messy process. But we're keen to host, we want to host, but we have to be respectful.
Okay, I want to talk hypotheticals. Yep. We're the dog that caught the car. What are you going to do with it?
We're going to use it for a couple of things. Firstly, it is one of the reasons that I want to do this so much is there's been 30, this year, 30 COPs, and I think 6 have been held in the Southern Hemisphere. So, and the last ones have been Sharm el-Sheikh, Dubai and Baku. So it's time to come to this part of the world. And I can think of no better opportunity for the Pacific to get their issues before the world. Point one. Point two, we are a global fossil fuel power, but we are doing lots and lots of things, and that's a story we can tell the world. Look, this is hard for everyone, but as a global fossil fuel exporter, here's the transition we have underway, here's the jobs we're creating, renewable energy, this is a story we can tell. And it's the world's largest trades fair, so it helps me get a lot of investment into Australia to help with the transition. So all those things are very important.
I understand you'll be doing lots of roundtables with industry, different sectors. What are people feeding back to you? Is there one bit of feedback from those roundtables that...
On the COP?
On the COP?
Well, this is one of the challenges because everyone's got great ideas, and if we have 40 priorities, we've got none. So after we've won the bid, it's a bit hard until we have... I've got to have a really sort of strict prioritisation project to say, okay, if we try and do 40 things as COP president, we'll fail. If we try and do 2 or 3 things, we have a very good chance of succeeding.
Has anything stood out in those?
I think oceans and the Pacific is very important. That's a clear, the impact of climate change on oceans, what we can do together on oceans, the importance of that for the Pacific. Having been a couple of weeks ago to Tuvalu, for example, and stood at the narrowest point of the atoll, you can see what's at stake here. And again, that investment story, an implementation COP is what I'm after, because I don't want a COP where, we all give bright, shiny commitments and then everyone goes home and says, well, that was great, and then we forget about them, which is, it can happen. Uh-huh. I want a COP focused on, okay, we've all made these promises at all the various COPs over, say, the last 5 years. What are we doing to implement those? Because in Australia, we have a good story to tell, but you can make a commitment and sign a pledge and make a target. Unless you're following that up, that's not good enough. And so a bit of a forcing mechanism to say, well, how are we going, world, on implementing this is the sort of COP that we would like to run.
In your mind, who's got the biggest ambition and who's lagging furthest behind on that ambition?
Oh, look, I don't want to... I spend a lot of time talking to my international counterparts, and we sometimes...
On Irrational Fear, we're trying to start World War III.
Yes, that's right.
Very exciting.
That's right. And us climate
we're all
talking
thinking
about...
of a name. I wonder if it's the same one.
Going back to...
Why don't you just write it on a bit of paper and just show it to me?
It's funny, when I talk to my climate minister counterparts from around the world, because we were talking before about what it's like, on Facebook, etc. We all have the same story. We are all the most controversial people in our governments, all of us. It's amazing when we sort of compare notes. We all go, oh, does this happen to you on social media? And we all go, yes, it does. But no, look, everyone's trying by and large, and again, that's why we why we understand the challenges in every country is different. Our challenge is different to New Zealand's. They've got their biggest emitting sector is agriculture. Ours is not, for example. And as my friend James Shaw, the former climate minister and Greens leader of New Zealand, said to me once, well, I can't really criticise you for exporting coal when we export cattle. So we've all got different contexts and challenges, but everyone's, again, COPs are interesting because there's lots of big debates, but...
Coming back to what you said before, I know a lot of activist groups in the green space are going to be pushing for a fossil fuel ban, which is quite huge. But what about no new fossil fuel projects? Is that going to be something we can take to COP?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves in terms of one, we haven't won the bid yet. But I will say
we have to get ahead of ourselves.
I will say this, Dan, the fossil fuel language was first put into a COP decision in Dubai. That was the first time. So that was, 2 years ago. Fossil fuels had not been mentioned in a COP decision until then. Now,
we understand, that was a major big
And you know
deal.
who did that? By and large, Australia, working with friends and colleagues. And, we had pushed at that point for language about phase out of fossil fuels. It was quite clear that wasn't going to work.
We spoke about phase out, phase down for about 4 weeks.
Yeah, and it just... and I don't want to sort of, but just telling the truth about what happened.
Yeah.
Then in a meeting at 11 o'clock at night, I said to the COP president, Sultan Al-Jaber, would you be able to live with transition away from fossil fuels? And he said, oh, maybe. And it was in. Great. And that was specific language, because that was the language that had come out of the PIF. So, small steps.
What I'm understanding is, if you wait till midnight, you can get a bit of language.
That's the way COP works. That's the way COP works. I'm here to tell you. The last COP...
It should be a 3-minute meeting. Just a 3-minute meeting at 11:57.
The last COP in Baku, Ed Miliband and I were at 2 o'clock in the morning, arguing with Saudi Arabia. That's how a COP works.
Yeah, I think I've described on the podcast before. It's 100,000 people get together and they edit a Google Doc.
That's large. That's right. Or when my first COP, my head of international in the Department of Climate Change and Energy said to me, "You've got to understand, Minister, a COP is 50,000 people all walking in the wrong direction." So
that's not to orientalise, but that's very Yoda, isn't it?
That's right.
What do you hope that you can have done by the end of it? Because certainly for people like us, yes, we are probably more in the camp of Chris Bowen seems like we appreciate there's clearly a lot of effort. There's clearly a lot of understanding. You are clearly a very intelligent person
who's got a haircut
is
for
around
this
this.
It's the nicest thing you've said about anyone said about me.
Yeah.
Weeks, yes.
But, obviously you're in a space where you are dealing with voters, you're dealing with a whole circle of people yelling at you. We don't have to deal with that. We can just go, well, this is what the scientists say. This is where we should be running. What do you want to achieve by the end of this parliamentary term?
Oh, well, I want our transition to be so locked in that, frankly, one day we'll lose an election. I hope it's many decades away, but one day we will lose.
Seems like it might be, frankly.
Well, we can't take it for granted. We got a clear instruction from the Australian people to keep going, and that's the way we interpret what they told us to do. But one day we'll lose an election. I want this transition to be so locked in that a change of government can't stop it. And that's my task over this term. And I think of it like Medicare and superannuation. You know, the Liberals opposed both those things, but by the time they eventually won election, they had so much community support and they were so locked in that no Liberal could ever promise to get rid of them. That's what we've got to do with this renewable energy transition.
That's what it felt like on election night. I don't know about you, Lewis. I was like, when I saw those numbers, I was like, well, the transition's going to happen now.
Yeah. Absolutely, because it was reversible this time, right? They could have got in and they could have done a huge amount of damage if they won. That's why so much was at stake. And, you know, every election is important, but I want by the time of the next election, I want so much progress made that really they can do a lot less damage than they could have if they were in this time.
Can I follow up on that, quickly? Because obviously while we are on the mandate that you've been given, the progress that you've done, the opposition, as such as it is, you know, who knows where they'll be by the next election. Right now, the coalition is a mess. All the, you know, you've got Joy still talking about nuclear. Canavan wants to build coal mines. Dan Tehan's talking about carbon capture and storage. You know, Susan Lee is just, anytime it's mentioned, she's like, well, we care about climate change, but we don't want to do it. But, like, it's all surface. So, and the Australian people clearly believe in climate change, want action. And yes, you're right. They don't want it to affect them economically, which is, you know. But like, what worries you about running forward? Do you know what I mean? Like, what are the things holding you back at this point?
Well, I'll get to that. Just on the coalition, just very briefly. Like, you know, every election I hope that they got the memo. Like this time on the Sunday morning, I thought, well, maybe, you know, they've lost another election on climate. Maybe they'll, you know, get sensible and start working with us. That lasts about 24 hours before, you know, that optimism gets beaten out of me by, you know, them saying, well, the message was, we weren't anti-climate change enough, you know, anti-climate change action enough, you know, we've got to move further to the right. Okay, all right, we'll do it for another 3 years then, shall we? One day they'll get the memo. But what worries me, I'm very confident about our targets and everything, and, you know, I mean that very genuinely. But there's a huge amount of obstacles that we still need to overcome. Like, there is absolutely no complacency. We've got supply chains, we've got labour force. You know, do we have enough workers? Can we get all the materials in time? You know, we had a close run thing recently on the Mariners Link, but if we'd missed that deadline, we had to wait another 5 years for the cable because there's so many demands for cables around the world. We've got a slot where we've booked the cable in. If we miss that deadline by a day, let's say, okay, you've missed that cable, the next one's available in 5 years' time. That's a
whole election away.
More. You know, so that's the sort of finely tuned thing that we're running here. And, you know, community support. We heard from some of your friends who, you know, think I'm doing too much and I shouldn't be doing offshore wind and, you know, all that sort of stuff. We've got to try, I think we are, as I said, the silent majority, but we've got to make sure we can't be complacent because that disinformation takes off so quickly. I mean, I'm constantly battling disinformation about everything about the transition, you know, just fundamental lies being told on Facebook. And we've just got to, you know, there's always a balancing act. You ignore that one because talking about it will draw attention to it, or do you combat it? And, you know, more and more I think, well, we've got to combat it because it's just going to keep going unless you actually tell the truth and correct the disinformation. So all that you asked, you know, what worries me, all the above is basically what we have to keep working on.
I want to talk once again about COP. Will you be the president or will you share it with somebody else?
We can't share it. It's a one-person job. The Prime Minister will make an announcement about that when we win the bid, if we win the bid, yes. So I'm not getting ahead of it, but it's not my announcement to make. But obviously...
do we ask the Prime Minister?
Well, you can when he comes on your show. You know, obviously I'm the Climate Change Minister of Australia. I'm the leader of our delegations to COP. I will be again in Belém in a couple of months' time. But, you know, I'm not the person to make that announcement.
Right, okay, good. All right, very good. As someone who, as we've mentioned before, is the Minister for Climate Change, what's the revolving door look like for you? Have you got a board position on a coal company already staked out?
Certainly not.
No big battery company offering to write some checks? Energizer?
No, I intend to be doing this job for quite a while yet, you know, because it's not...
Surely you're going to fix climate change this term, right? You're going to fix it?
My diary's clear on Tuesday. I'll get it done then. I've been in politics and Parliament for the long haul, and this is, as I said, the most important job I've ever had and ever will do, so I've got a bit more left in the tank yet.
Great. Chris, we've got 3 questions from our Patreon supporters. I'm just going to run by you quickly. Some are pretty angry.
Some of these are going to be shockers. You're really putting the caveats out there in advance.
Tim asks, won't someone consider the poor billionaires? Isn't it more worthwhile to leave rare earths in the ground and get a better crop yield over 100 years than dig it up in 20?
Well, I'll give a serious answer to that. Agriculture and climate action can and must coexist. We need to make food and fibre, and we need to get the critical minerals out of the ground, and we need renewables in the regions as well as in the cities. And I believe we can do all that. Australia's largest solar farm runs 6,000 sheep. So, and there's plenty of evidence that productivity of sheep improves under, when they get shade from the solar panels. So I know the question was about critical minerals, but the whole thing, I'd see it more holistically. We're a very big country and we've got room to do all the above.
We've covered this a little bit already. LW asks if the climate wars are over, as stated in 2022. Why has Labor approved the North West Shelf until 2070 for Woodside?
Well, the climate wars aren't over, tragically, because the opposition continues to deny net zero and the need for action. And again, I think we touched on North West Shelf. This transition is not simple or easy. It is complicated. And the idea that we can just turn off taps and the rest of the world will somehow, deal with it is not one that I share.
Dead Kitty asks, Mr. Bowen, when will the government show real accountability and leadership to fix corruption, inequality and the lack of essential services so Australians can believe their leaders are worth their pay?
Well, we set up the NAC. Some people said the NAC haven't done enough. Well, the thing about a NAC is it's independent, like the National Anti-Corruption Commission. It's independent. You can't set it up and then tell them how to do their job. We've set that up. That was a big step forward. And look at our priorities. Again, I'm not expecting everyone to get a standing ovation for everything we do all the time, but here we've increased the PRRT by more than $2 billion. We've cut HECS debt by 20%. I think we're showing where our priorities are. There's a contrast right there. Again, a lot of these things you do, people bank, and I get that, fair enough, that's done, now what's next? But you've got to take a moment to reflect on the progress as well.
Yeah. Speaking of standing ovations, well done, Chris Bowen.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm standing there. That was mainly for transition away. That was that standing ovation.
Right.
I thought transition away, that deserves a standing ovation.
Well, that's very kind of you, Dan.
Chris, thank you so much for having a chat with us on A Rational Fear. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I guess the only other thing, and I know this is not your area, but I guess it is sort of the big story of the world, and we don't often have people of your calibre on.
You had the mooch on.
Well, we had the mooch on.
See, that was big.
But
Seriously.
there was a huge march, the March of Palestinian people over the weekend. There's obviously a lot of different opinions coming through, even within your party. You've got Ed Husick saying Albanese seems to have underestimated the feeling.
I'm not sure that's what Ed said.
Well,
but yes,
I won't put words into anyone's mouth. I'll ask you yourself. Where are you on this? And because a lot of people are now saying we need to move towards recognising Palestinian statehood. Where are you on this?
Look, I am very supportive, warmly and strongly, of what the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister are doing. I'm saying this very genuinely. This is not a talking point of what they're doing in the path to recognition. Penny Wong said more than 12 months ago, we do not see recognition as the end of a peace process. We said it's part of the peace process. And if you support a two-state solution, as I do, I believe in Israel's right to exist, I don't believe Israel will be truly free and secure until Palestine is, and vice versa. And I think it's pretty clear what the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister are setting out to achieve here, recognition as part of a peace process. That's very different to we'll wait till the two-state solution is sorted out. I think they're very clearly signalling what they are working towards, and I am a huge supporter of that journey.
What about stop sending non-lethal parts to Israel?
You're raising this very late.
I know. We'd already given you the standing ovation, but I just thought, look.
We have a different view about the facts there. We do not supply arms to Israel and Australia. We just don't. But yes, we're part of a complicated supply chain, so people can look at one element of it, and I think, I'm saying you did this, Dan, but others misrepresent it. But, the idea that we are sending arms to Israel is just not one that stands up to scrutiny, because we wouldn't do that.
Chris Bowen, thank you very much for joining us.
Great pleasure. Look, in all seriousness, I was expecting, the angles at which you came, but thanks for what you do to progress the debate. In all seriousness, I don't agree with everything that, you guys argue for, obviously, but I do very much appreciate the contribution you make in a accessible way, a funny way.
Well, thank you. I feel like we're all hoping to run in the same direction largely.
Yes, yeah,
that's right.
Let's get our plugs on the way. Lewis, do you want to plug anything?
Not for me, no. I'm all done. Thank you.
Great. Do you want to plug anything?
Cheaper home batteries. 1,000 Australians a day doing it. Get in it. Get your quotes. You'll have to wait a little bit because all the installers are so busy. It's cheaper. It's safer. It's a safe thing to do. It's more reliable energy. It's cleaner energy. It's cheaper energy. A lot of people complain that they don't get much feed-in tariffs from their solar panels during the day anymore, and that's true. So why don't we save that energy so you don't need to call off the grid and coal at night?
I'm considering it.
How's this? I'm in a rental in Melbourne, and the rental property I'm in has solar panels. I mean, that's where we're at. That's crazy to me. I feel like I'm living in the future.
Well, I mean, it's a conundrum about how we help renters more. I want to, but it's a very complicated policy area. But it's great. There's not many renters in that situation, so well done you.
Can't believe it. I'm really living the dream. I mean, I'm renting, so I'm not living the dream. But
Not really.
I'm living the millennial Australian
You heard
dream.
it here first. He's living the dream.
Yeah, this is just so you know,
Renting.
Chris. This is what
the
it's
great
like.
Australian rental dream.
This is what it's like for a millennial.
Lewis is living.
I'm paying slightly less, for someone else's mortgage. That's the dream.
Big thanks to Road Mikes, our Patreon supporters, Jacob Brown on that Teppanyaki timeline. Big thanks to Chris Bowen and your wonderful staff here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
No worries. Until next week, there's always something to be scared of. Goodbye.